Welcome to the Friendly Podcast Guide, sorting through podcasts so you don't have to. I'm Andy Smiley, and I want to help you discover the right podcast without having to listen to an entire episode. Now, let's talk podcasts. Hi, everybody. Today I am talking about the podcast How She Moms. This podcast has an interesting way of helping moms figure out how to tackle different aspects of being a mom. And I think you will really enjoy it. But first, let me tell you about some of the details of the show. The show description is, Whitney Archibald, a mother of 5, is on a quest to find out how different moms solve the same problems. She picks a new topic each episode and collects ideas from other moms so you can pick and choose what works for you and your family. The length of each episode is about 30 to 45 minutes. It is completely kid ear friendly. It is an ongoing show that drops every Tuesday. Before we learn more about How She Moms, we are going to take a quick break to ask you to rate and review this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. This helps other people find the show, which will in turn hopefully help them find new podcasts they will love. Now we get to hear from Whitney about why she thinks podcasts are so great for moms and why she loves making her podcast. Whitney, thank you so much for being on the show. I was fangirling before we hit record, and I am probably going to continue to fangirl because I am really excited to talk to you, Whitney.
Well, I'm excited too. And that was very flattering. I appreciated the fangirling.
I'm so glad. I'm excited to be able to ask you, what made you want to start How She Moms?
So, I've always loved writing and editing, and I've always loved being a mom. And I felt like, I've been a stay-at-home mom for a while. And before that, I had a career in magazines. And I decided that this really was the perfect intersection of my two careers to make and produce a podcast about motherhood. And they're just both two things that I'm passionate about. I always kind of knew I would do something like that, and I always loved listening to podcasts. And so it all just kind of came together.
I love that. I too love listening to podcasts, and that's why I made my podcast. Can you tell me, why do you keep making it? Why have you done it for 3 years? That's incredible.
So I think it's mostly curiosity, honestly. So I used to sit there, doing the dishes or doing things with my kids, just doing the everyday household things. And I would think about what if I could rise above this neighborhood and lift off all the roofs and see what everybody else was doing in all their houses. We're all kind of doing a lot of these same processes. We're carrying out these systems and creating these relationships and doing all these things, but it's really that whole concept of invisible work. It's inside our homes. It's not a communal thing, this raising and managing a family. So I started thinking of the concept of invisible ingenuity, because we're doing all this similar work, but we're coming at it in different ways. And my tagline is different moms solving the same problems. And, we don't see all these inventions that people are coming up with, all these ideas on a regular basis. And so my driving force is I want to find those. I want to bring those to light so that we all can benefit and then try them out in our own homes.
Definitely. I have definitely used some of the things that you've brought up. What would you consider the feeling of your show or the vibe? How do people describe your show?
I think I hope that it's real first and foremost, that it's not this ideal picture of what you would like your home to look like someday, that it's based in grounded in reality, where sometimes we mess up, sometimes we succeed, we learn from our failures. So I hope that it's warm and has some humor, but I hope that mostly it shows that I'm real. All the moms I interview are real. We all have things that we excel at, and we all have things that we don't even prioritize and put on the back burner. And I think about, we talk about the social media world that's all fakety fake, but I want to get to a point where we can all celebrate what everybody else is really good at. And because there are so many things that we could excel at, and so many things on that list of what maybe people would think of as a good mom, that we can use that to liberate us and be like, oh, well, I can't possibly be good at all those things. I'm going to pick the things I care about and just be happy that other people are covering the other things.
Definitely. I love that. Can you tell me why you think podcasts are so great for moms?
Oh my goodness. I think podcasts saved my life when I was in the young children stage. I needed some adult conversation and some mental stimulation. I actually wasn't even listening to be honest, there weren't a lot of mom podcasts back 16 years ago when I started, but I was listening to This American Life and, some of those early podcasts, and they were my adult relationships for a while, those parasocial relationships where I'm their friend, but they don't know who I am. And they're a big part of my life. But I love learning. And I was sad when I graduated from college because I had to stop, taking all these classes. But then I realized there was this whole world where I could keep learning endlessly from experts and non-experts, there are so many great resources in the podcast world and endless mental stimulation.
Definitely. I completely agree. I also was sad when I graduated because I had to stop learning. And I feel like for me, I first found audiobooks and then I found podcasts. And I feel like audiobooks are great, but they're just really long. And podcasts, I feel like I can get a snippet of an episode of something cool and then move on and not have to keep thinking about it, or at least keep like where I am in the book in my mind. So
yeah, no, it is a good form for people who are interrupted a lot, the podcast form. And that is kind of the nature of motherhood, isn't it?
Yes. Just being distracted and cut off is just par for the course for a young mom. And okay, this might be hard, but do you have a favorite episode or a couple of episodes of your show?
Yeah. So I love the crowdsourced episodes where I interview a bunch of different moms on one topic. And those always start with how she does something. And then I also, will take some of those interviews and then make full episodes out of those so that people can hear more about that person. And then that will have their name in the title, how so-and-so, how Emily does this, or how, such and such. But I love the crowdsourcing ones the most because they're the most fun to write. And mostly I love when I get completely opposite responses about how people do things or what they believe about things, because that's when true discourse and true learning happens, and when somebody blows my mind, like I have never even thought of approaching it that way. That's what I love. And so when I can bring a bunch of those together and say, here are these options, but you know what? You can totally do the opposite. And this is how it works in this family. I love that. So those are my favorite type. I asked my husband, because it's really hard. It's like picking a favorite child or something, because I like different episodes for different reasons. And I was surprised we both picked the same favorite episode personally. And that was the very second episode, which has terrible production quality because it was early. But it was still probably the only time when I sat down and the ideas came from start to finish and it just flowed. And I actually was crying through tears as I was writing that, because it was a very relevant problem at the time. So it's episode 2 called Raising Seabiscuit. And I was comparing raising one of my extra spirited children to the book Seabiscuit and like the very spirited horse that they were training, and how that's like one of the best parenting books I've ever read about how they trained this spirited horse. And so it may not be like the best sounding podcast, but he liked that. He said that felt the most inspirational to him. And I definitely felt the most inspired as I was writing it. So that was kind of an interesting we had never talked about that before. The most influential to my family has been the research I did on teaching kids about money and the great allowance debate. Those are the titles of the 2 episodes. because it totally changed the way I thought about money and allowance and things like that with my kids. And I'm still like daily using the ideas that I learned in that episode when I was pretty clueless to start. So that's made a big impact. The one I get probably the most feedback on is how she takes care of herself. There were 2 episodes.
Yes, I do remember those.
Oh,
I
good.
really liked those.
Yeah, part 1 and part 2 of that one. I get a lot of feedback on. So I don't know. There's lots of different kinds of favorites.
I love it. Well, and I feel like, moms are all in different stages. So I'll just link all of those in the show notes so that people can jump straight to them if they're ready to learn about any of those things. And can you tell me, where can people find you?
So I'm so excited. I just redid my website and it is so much better and prettier. So that's howshemoms.com. Pretty easy to find me. Then I'm on Instagram and Facebook at howshemoms. That's all you have to remember is the title of my podcast and you can find me.
That is fabulous. Well, thank you so much. And I am excited to continue to listen to your podcast, and hopefully some of my listeners can tune in too.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you want to hear about more podcasts, please follow or subscribe on your podcast app of choice. And a reminder to rate or review this show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Talk to you soon.